Oh, I'm sorry.
Until
Okay. Prior to us calling the meeting to order and going over some procedural rules, we do just want to pass a motion for Member Campbell to sit as chair at this evening's meeting. So I would like for someone to pass that motion. Thank you, Member Robert, and seconded by Member Carrick-Funk. You may proceed.
As we gather, we recognize that we are on Treaty 3 lands, which are steeped in rich Indigenous history and the home to many First Nations and Métis people today. We continue to be thankful for the partnerships with our Indigenous peoples. This is a hearing of the Kenora Planning Advisory Committee and the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Kenora. The committee members have been appointed by City Council to consider applications of minor variances, consent, plans of subdivisions, and condominium descriptions within the jurisdiction of the Planning Act. The applicants or agents will be given the opportunity to speak on behalf of their submissions and to respond to questions arising from discussions of these applications. Interested members of the public will be given opportunity to speak in favor and or in opposition to applications being dealt with at these hearings. Prior to calling the meeting to order, should you be joining by video, please be mindful of what is visible to the public surroundings. Please be respectful throughout the meeting. If any time you wish to leave the meeting, you are free to do so quietly exiting the meeting room. And for those of you on Zoom, simply by clicking end call at the bottom of your screen. Please note, this meeting is being recorded, and by continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. Tap Leave Meeting to opt out and exit the session. When it is time for public comment, those of you who have registered to speak, I will address you by name and you registered with when it is your turn to speak. If you did not pre-register and wish to speak, please use the raise hand function or simply raise your hand to the screen and I will address you by the name that appears on the screen. Once your name has been called, please unmute your microphone or your telephone, and all persons addressing the committee shall state their full name and their mailing address and must direct their comments through myself, the chair. Decisions will be mailed or emailed to the applicant, agent, and to all other interested parties who have provided their mailing address or email address to the Secretary Treasurer at mshaw@kenora.ca. Also, a notice of adjournment application or possible local planning appeal tribunal hearing will also be provided to those who have made written requests via email to the Secretary Treasurer at mshaw@kenora.ca. The decision and or any conditions imposed by the committee can be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. I call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of preemptory interest, general nature thereof? Seeing none. On today's agenda, are there any additions to the agenda?
I have none.
Seeing none. The approval of the minutes for the meeting held on September 18th, 2024, the regular planning meeting advisory committee. Can I have a mover to approve the minutes from the September 18th meeting? Renee? And correspondence relating to the, and a seconder? All in favor? Correspondence relating to the application before the committee. Is there other correspondence?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would just like to acknowledge that there has been an amendment made on behalf of the city planner to agenda item number 11, old business, D07-2302, change of conditions to draft plan of subdivision Riverwood. So there was an amendment to the planning report and to the recommendation, just making note of that on record.
Okay. Are there any adjournment requests? None? Is there consideration for applicant? So we will move to item number 8, consideration of the applicant for minor variance, D13-2408. I invite the applicant to make comment.
Sure, thank you. So we're applying to build this multi-story commercial building that's gonna house my business and several other businesses in Kenora. And through this process, we've determined that 2 stories was not even close to meeting the demand in town. So as you can see, we're requesting to increase our building height to 4 stories, and hence the requirement for the variance to 15.55 meters from the 11 meters that's permitted. I think for us, it's a very important project, and I think for Kenora, it's beneficial. I think hoping we get support.
Okay, are there any members of the public who wish? Oh,
Feel free to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I'll just share my screen here for joining virtually. Okay, as mentioned by Mr. Brooks, this is for a minor variance application for the unaddressed property on 9th Street North. There. This is to permit an increase in the maximum building height from what's currently in the zoning bylaw from 11 meters to 15.55 meters for a total relief of 4.55 meters. Here's the location, site of the former mill property. And here is the site plan, showing the location on 9th Street North, as well as the location of the building setback to the rear of the lots, with parking in the front end and some parking in the rear. So comments, city staff wanted to make sure that service connections are adequate, fire protection flow is adequate, and that a backflow preventer be installed. And these are all provisions that will be included in site plan control agreement for the development. Ministry of Natural Resources had no concerns, and there were no concerns received from the public at the time of the preparation of the report. The proposed development meets requirements or priorities as identified in the provincial policy statement, and it also meets the forecast of being minor in nature. It meets the intent of the official plan, intent of the zoning bylaw, and it is desirable and appropriate for the development of the land. And it is felt that the request is minor in nature. For recommended conditions, just that no part of the proposed building may penetrate a 45-degree angular plane beginning from a height of 11 meters projecting inwards from each lot line, except for the permitted projections above the height limit as outlined in section 3.24 of the City of Kenora zoning bylaw. So just for like the 45-degree angular plane, it's a fairly common principle used in major centers where height of buildings can have an impact on neighboring properties, and it's really designed to make sure that the height of the existing building minimizes or mitigates impacts on the surrounding landowners in terms of shade and feeling like they're being towered over. So applying those principles to this property is a recommended condition to make sure that people developing neighboring properties in the future aren't adversely impacted by the change in height, and it's felt that this provision will address that. And the recommendation is recommended that the minor variance application to seek relief from the City of Kenora bylaw, section 4.7.3, be approved to permit maximum building height of 15.55 meters, subject to the recommended condition brought up previously. With that, thank you, Madam Chair, and I don't know if there are any questions.
Um, do you have any questions?
No, makes sense to me. Yeah.
Do we ask the people? Are there any members of the public or on Zoom that wish to ask any questions at this time? Seeing none, are there any members of the committee who have any questions?
I'm just, is there any concern with that 45 angular plane with regards to current site plan and dimensions?
No.
It wasn't clear to me, so the parkade, you're gonna have a covered parkade,
Correct, yes,
and will there be offices on top of that?
yes,
Okay,
that'll be in the lower level.
I
Partially,
see.
yeah, fully rated.
Keep the snow off.
Okay. Motion stating that application D 13-2408 to seek relief from the city of Kenora zoning bylaw 101, 2015, section 4.73C be approved or is approved, my apologies, to permit a maximum building height of 15.55 meters and subject to the following condition. That no part of the proposed building may penetrate a 45-degree angular plane beginning from a height of 11 meters projecting inwards from each lot line, except for the permitted projections above the height limit as outlined in section 3.24 of the city of Kenora zoning bylaw.
Can I have a mover? Mr. Funk, can I have a seconder? Okay. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you. To you, Mr. Brooks, you have received a positive recommendation here this evening and approval. That is subject to the appeal. Of course, there are the limitations under the provisions of the Planning Act. The appeal deadline is on Tuesday, November 7th, and notice will be mailed out to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us this evening.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's get some signatures before we move on.
Nobody has a real pen.
Oh, I guess we have lots.
This is probably- That's a big one.
Magnetic. Moving on to item number 8, consideration of the application for land division -24-08. Would you like to present your motion?
My name is Greg Moncrief. The application is, lot addition. It's interfamily, transfer. And historically, the land, talked about was an extension of Irving residential yard. And then this is just to kind of clear up, ownership, of that property.
Okay,
It's transferring from the business to the personal.
That's a good guess.
would you like to present?
As mentioned, so this is a consent application for 82 Reddit Road. The owner is MCL Holdings. And the applicant is the neighboring property owner, Greg and Donna Moncrief. The purpose of this, as mentioned, is to sever a piece of land from 82 Reddit Road and merge it with the abutting property to the north at 129 Anderson Branch Road. The land proposed to be severed is approximately 1.2 hectares in size and will be conveyed to the owners of 129 Anderson Road. The land proposed to be retained is approximately 5 hectares in size. So this is the subject land here in its entirety shown, and here is the parcel being proposed to be severed, and then such a lot addition to the neighboring property at 129 Anderson Branch Road. So again, there's the retained and the lot addition, just another view of what's being proposed. In terms of comments, city of Kenora staff, and this is circulated internally, there were no comments. Ministry of Natural Resources did note that they have recommended frontage and depths for lots in this area, but the lots meet those requirements, so there was no need for anything further on that. Ministry of Transportation had no comments or objections, and at the time of report submission, there were no comments received from members of the public. So for the planning review, this application was consistent with the provincial policy statement. It does not require a plan of subdivision for the properly and orderly development of the municipalities, keeping with the Planning Act. It conforms with section 124 of the Planning Act, conforms with the City of Kenora official plan, and as well as the City of Kenora's zoning bylaw. Just to note, so the zoning of the two parcels will remain the same, so this will be one property with a split zone. So we're not losing any commercial lands, and any change to that will require a zoning amendment. So it complies with the current zoning bylaw, and if there are any changes in use, it will require rezoning or minor variance. And there are no objections or concerns raised from agencies or the public with respect to this application. So the recommended conditions, bear with me, I'll just read through these. The conditions imposed must be met within 2 years of the date of notice of decision. Provided the conditions are fulfilled within 2 years, the application is valid for 3 years from the date of notice of decision. So first condition is provide to the satisfaction of the city a survey showing the lot lines of the separate parcel and a reference plan based on an approved survey. Number 3, there is 3 original copies and 1 PDF copy of the reference plan and survey, bearing the land registry office registration number and signatures, which must show in general the same area and dimensions as the sketch forming part of the application provided. And where a violation of any city zoning bylaw is evident, the appropriate minor variance or rezoning be obtained to the satisfaction of the city. That the newly created parcel be consolidated on title with the adjacent lot identified. And if recommended on solicitor review, that a merger agreement be entered into. And this is just to ensure that because we're starting with 2 parcels of land, we're going to end with 2 parcels of land, and this is just making sure that that doesn't change 6 months down the road. So that's that the payment of any outstanding taxes, including penalties and interest, shall be paid to the City of Kenora. The original executed transfer deed of land form, original and 1 photocopy for city records be provided for each parcel, and a schedule of the transfer deed of land form on which is set out the entire legal descriptions of the pins in question, containing the names of the parties indicated on page 1 of the transfer deed of land form to be provided for each parcel. And that prior to endorsement of the deeds, the secretary treasurer shall receive a letter from the owner or the owner's agent solicitor confirming that conditions 1 through 8 have been fulfilled. Clearance from the City of Kenora and external agencies as required are to be included. That it's recommended that the consent application be approved and that provisional consent be granted with the recommended conditions that were just listed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, do you have any questions? No. I invite members of the public to speak in favor or opposed. Seeing none, the committee, do you have any questions or debate of the presented motion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, would you read the motion?
Sure, certainly. That application D10-2408 for consent lot addition to sever approximately 1.2 hectares of land from pin 42174-0293, civic address 82 Reddit Road, and consolidate it with pin 42174-0212, civic address 129 Anderson Road is approved and provisional consent is granted subject to the conditions outlined within the planning report.
Okay, may I have a mover? Mr. Funk, a seconder? Renee? All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you. Mr. Moncrief, as the agent representing the application, you have received provisional approval here this evening. They are subject to those conditions outlined by the planner, and we can go through those with you once you receive your decision. I will send notice of this decision tomorrow, and it will be subject to an appeal period. So the applicant, minister, a specified person, or a public body may no later than 20 days after giving the notice appeal. So that takes us to November 8th. Okay, thank you for being here with us this evening.
Thank you so much, Ruth.
That's so fun, isn't it? Thank you for reminding me. I'm just missing anything. Oh, my friend.
All right, moving on to number 10, recommendation to council for amendments. There are none. Item number 11, old business, D 07-2302. Would you like to present, please?
I'll be presenting.
Okay,
This is essentially a housekeeping item when subdivision D 7-2302 was approved in August of 2023. Planning Advisory Committee had two conditions, one under condition 12 and condition 18. Both were, one was under policy 8.11.4E of the official plan, and the other was under policy 4.6.3E of the official plan. It was understood at the time that these were different policies and different, both were development charge and parkland dedication, so it was assumed that they were the development charge and parkland dedication. Upon further review, it was determined that they were both parkland dedication fees and duplicated. So we received a request to remove both of them. Upon review, we concur that we cannot ask for a development charge because we don't have a reciprocating bylaw to that effect. So the only ability that we see could charge would be the parkland dedication fee as permitted under section 21 Planning Act. So our recommendation is that that we remove condition 12 from the original subdivision agreement, and that we leave condition 18 because we do have the ability to have parkland dedication under policy section 51.1.
okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, could you read the motion?
Certainly. That the request to change the decision of application for draft plan of subdivision file number D 07-2302 by striking and removing the requirements of condition number 12, stating that the owner developer will be required to provide the cash equivalent of 5% of the land based on the current value assessment as required under the City of Kenora Official Plan 2015 Policy 8.11.4E is approved pursuant to section 5144 of the Planning Act, and the change is deemed minor subject to subsection 5147.
Wonderful. Can I have a mover, please? Renee? And a seconder, Mr. Funk? All in favor?
That is a carry vote. We will, we are not required to provide notice of this as it is deemed minor under section 5147. Thank you to the city planner for presenting on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. Item number 12, do we have any new business?
Seeing none at this time.
Okay, well then I move to adjourn. Can I have a mover?
Hey, Chris. He's sitting way down at the end there.
6:24. Yeah. Thank you to members of the public who are on the Zoom meeting and to members in the audience. We have adjourned the meeting. Have a lovely evening. Thank you for being here.
Sweet.
We have to sign anything, the last one, do we